was single, a submissive woman looking for a dominant single man.
Tonight on Let It Rip, it's the most talked about murder case in the country with an added twist. Was the BDSM lifestyle the motive for Jane Bashara's killing?
He was a master.
He was a master and a dominant person.
The dominant, yes. He did have a dungeon, yes.
Master and slave, dominant and submissive, all playing out before a jury. More on the alternative lifestyle becoming key in the trial, and a lesson on what it's all about as a local dominatrix joins us live. Plus, kids sending nude pictures to other kids. It's gotten out of control for at least 2 area high schools, but should these sexting students be charged with felonies?
It is time to let it rip. Hi, everyone. Murray Feldman in for my friend Huell. He's back next week. On the panel tonight, Fox 2's Amy Lang, who's been covering every minute and every graphic detail of the Bashara murder trial. She gives us insight into how the jurors have reacted to all of this. Next to her, Birmingham psychiatrist Dr. Gerald Shiner with a clinical perspective on some of the more lurid details coming out in court. And a local woman who some have called a dominatrix. I want to make sure that I get this right. Castrata, lady of pain, goddess of temptation and torture, provoker and penetrator of the senses.
Yes, but I'm also mostly a sexual enhancement consultant who likes to dominate others.
Can we just call you Lady Pain?
You can call me Lady Pain, or just Castrata.
For short.
Yes.
For short. Amy Lang. You sit, and Charlie Langton, I'm sorry, Charlie Langton is
just go ahead, Murray, it's okay, it's okay.
Charlie Langton.
I understand, Murray.
He is a slave to nothing except fashion. Look at his tie right there.
Always.
Amy, you're in the court every day, you're on the air every day, you're blogging live throughout the day, you're tweeting out what happens, all the details that are shocking people.
Well, I think you said it best yesterday when I was done with my story, and you said, really, I think that was a little more information than we wanted. And nobody needed to hear that much. And while I might agree with that, it really is central to the prosecution's case, and that's what's important, and that's why this is being talked about so much. And we've heard over and over thus far that Bob Bashara wanted more to do with the BDSM lifestyle, that he wanted to be involved in it more. We heard testimony from Sir Patrick Webb that he was at his clubs all the time. We heard testimony from Rachel Gillette that he wanted to be more involved in the community by having people to his home that he hoped to share with Rachel and some other woman in a poly relationship. We've heard about the dungeon where there were padded chairs and BDSM cross, and this was the dungeon in the basement of the property that Bob Bashara owned. So we're getting a lot of information and a lot of insight into a lifestyle that I'm sure a lot of the jurors may or may not have a whole lot of information about. They're certainly getting an education at this point, but I think that because this is so central to the prosecution's case, that Jane did not want anything to do with this, that she did not approve of it, that she would not involve herself in it, we have to hear all about it so that the prosecution can get you to buy in that this is why Bob Bashara allegedly had Jane murdered.
And so the jury and everybody else who's following this, Dr. Shiner, get insight into something that many people have not seen before. You have seen it.
I have. It's a learning experience for the jury, but we do see people who are troubled by parts of themselves they don't understand, parts of themselves they don't like. Secret sexual desires, a need to hide those things, being ashamed of who you really are, and this is the community where that's expressed. And when someone's at conflict with themselves, that's when they can do something desperate or something illegal or something outrageous, like hurt their wife.
Lady Payne, you don't watch television, you haven't followed the trial, but your lifestyle is front and center here. Is that good or is that bad?
In this case, I don't think it's a positive light to bring to the lifestyle in the community, but there are many other things that are bringing the BDSM and the kink community very mainstream, things like the whole 50 Shades of Grey book. I mean, there's so many women now who are going out and buying restraints and blindfolds and different implements to experiment these things with their husbands because they're at home reading these books. But I think the fact that they are using BDSM as his defense, or I mean as the prosecutor's, you know, the motive, is very silly. BDSM doesn't make someone into a murderer. It doesn't make someone a deviant. There are more kinky people than you know. Personally, I believe everyone is a kinkster. They just don't all realize it, and not everyone's in touch with it because, as the doctor said, there's many people who have internal conflict.
And clearly, the issue is being ashamed of who you are, being ashamed of some of the things you want deep down inside, having to hide them, and it's that conflict that may make people act out or do things. Not necessarily a motive for murder, but just being uncomfortable with yourself, yourself or hating yourself for something that you want to do.
Yes. But let's be clear. What the prosecution is trying to do in this Bashara case is, number one, paint Bob Bashara as a bad guy. Not only did he cheat on his wife, he cheated on his mistress. He lied to everybody. And they're using this kink stuff to make him look really bad. And when the jury hates the defendant, it's guilty almost every time.
All right, there's a good point to bring out here from the court, and we take you into the courtroom right now as a little bit of what Bob Bashara's mistress, Rachel Gillette, said about their relationship. Here it comes.
What did you call him?
Either MB or Master Bob.
And the MB being short for Master Bob?
Yes.
And
sometimes slave, sometimes just by my name.
Did you describe the dungeon?
It was just a small room partitioned off in a basement, and there was a bed, a table with a TV on it, several small tables, a BDSM cross, a padded chair, and a leather chair that he used to sit in.
Amy Lang was right there as that was being said and recorded.
Yes, and another thing that I thought was very interesting is what I thought was the line of the day yesterday, when Sir Patrick Webb said, you know, there's equipment in the dungeon that you just can't buy at the Lazy Boy. There's furniture. It was furniture in a dungeon you just can't buy at the Lazy Boy. And anyway, he went on to say he had made pieces of equipment for Bob's dungeon, for his own club, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the jurors, you know, I mean, really at one point they had to kind of break a little bit early because someone got the case of the giggles. I mean, it was so much for them to...
It gets titillating, and it's a way to get people angry at the defendant, as you said, because, you know, here's a guy who cheated on his wife, told lies, hid things and had a secret life, and then killed someone and hurt someone. So you get mad at him, whatever his position was, whatever he did.
It's hard to make the S&M lifestyle mainstream, despite what Lady of Pain is saying.
It actually is very, very mainstream. You would be surprised. I mean, the most orthodox sexual activities that everyone here engages in are in one way or another a form of power play.
But not with multiple people, not at dungeons, not with leather,
those are just accessories.
Oh. But it's more common.
Those are just things that enhance and
Charlie, it's more common than you realize. Mm-hmm. And it's a part of many people's desire, and that's why we all have a funny reaction to it. That's why we're all a little uncomfortable by it, and when we hear about it. But these are, when you're talking about bondage and discipline, these are people who are in high-powered positions who make decisions all day. They're under a great deal of pressure, and this is an opportunity for them to be told what to do, to be confined, to learn how to be helpless and powerless and get comfortable with it. It's a significant release for many people. It's more common than you think, but we don't hear about it.
I think what the defense is going to have to do, though, is going to have to kind of desensitize the jury that this is what Lady of Pain and you're talking about. This is mainstream. It's done every day by every person.
In the second week, they won't be laughing about these things, or they won't be reacting. The longer you hear about it, the less your emotional reaction is.
All right, let's hear a little bit more from the courtroom, though.
This is what
this is what the jury, some of what the jury heard. Now, this is the witness. He owns a club, and he explains some of the rules of the lifestyle.
If a master's out there swinging a whip, or if a lady is out there swinging a whip, and she isn't observing the people around her, it's a disrespect to everyone at the party. If the slave gives a safe word and you take them beyond that, you lose respect in the community because you didn't honor the trust that the slave gave you.
One of the things, if I might just say, that Sir Patrick Webb spoke of, and really this was a lot of it at the urging of Judge Vonda Evans. She had a lot of questions for him. It wasn't just the attorneys asking questions, but she's been that way throughout this trial. You know, I think that when you look at Sir Patrick Webb, he is the one who said, in terms of things being more mainstream, that there are 70,000 people in the Ann Arbor area who partake in FetLife and this whole, you know,
You'd be amazed at how many locations and parties there are. It's to the point where, in some ways, within the community, there's a lot of politics that go on, and people have to learn how to play nice, a lot of the organizers and the community leaders, because there are so many events happening every weekend that people have to choose where are they going to go. You know, which dungeon do they want to visit? They're even using VFW halls. I mean, it's everywhere. There's so mainstream. There are many stores where you can go and purchase these things. Yeah, you don't go to a furniture store, but if you go to Home Depot, just walk through Home Depot.
It's a
joke within the community that we can buy anything we need at Home Depot.
Let's be clear about something. The reason it's coming out on the trial, correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, is because it may have been a motive. However, when you get to this lifestyle, there's nothing illegal.
No, and that's what the defense has to show.
But is there something unhealthy?
Well, the unhealthy part is when you're guilty about what you're doing, you're embarrassed and you're ashamed, and you have to hide it. And that's the unhealthy part. There are lots of ways to express your sexuality. There are lots of ways to get pleasure. If you hear about safe words and telling people when to stop, they're really in control, even though they're being tied up. If they say the safe word, they're out. So they're not out of control. They're not really bonded. But the unhealthy part is when you have to hide it, when you are desperate because someone's going to expose you, when you feel you can be blackmailed or be vulnerable for it, or when someone forces you to do something that you don't want to do because of this. Now, it's hard to understand how this really fits into the prosecution unless, again, it's just a way to get people angry at Bob Bashara or to portray him as a deviant and a freak who's, if he's capable of this, he's capable of anything. And I think that that's the connection the prosecution's trying to make.
A great final thought, final thought.
Those things can be said true of pretty much any activity. I mean, gambling, you know, people can have inner conflict about that. The intoxicants that they consume, any type of recreational activity that we engage in, there can always be some form of conflict about that. But there's also, I mean, recently the American Psychological Association removed BDSM as I'm losing the word for it. Thank you. A disorder. Yes, we have the expert here. And they've also been coming up with all these literature saying that the people within the BDSM community, the kink community, tend to be some of the most well-balanced, healthy, happy people because they are exploring who they are and what they desire and fulfilling their fantasies. And when you fulfill those sexual fantasies, it makes all those other dreams in your life that much more obtainable.
And on Monday, the testimony continues.
Testimony continues, and you know, in the end, I mean, this really is a very, very serious case. This is about the murder of a woman who was a mother, a volunteer in the community, a daughter, a sister, a really great all-around person, according to absolutely everybody, and we can't lose sight of that.
Well said. Amy, Dr. Shiner, stick around for the next panel.
I will.
Lady Payne, thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Very enlightening and very educational, I might add, and I thank you for that. Coming up next, speaking about education, we're going into the schools. We're going to take a look at sexuality in the schools. Dozens of kids at several schools in Metro Detroit facing potential child porn charges for what they shared on their cell phones. Should these kids be treated like sex predators? We're going to debate it. We're going to let it rip in just a moment.